Hat Atelier is one of my favorite manga of all time. The series expertly captures the feelings of youthful joy and whimsy, running perpendicular to a deep and ever-mounting dread. Wonderful displays of magic and heroism contrasting with uncomfortably real depictions of class disparity and trauma. And I think the single best example of this dichotomy lies in the main character Coco, a young girl who has lived on both sides of fate's coin, and has to deal with the crippling feelings of self-hatred and guilt that comes from moving from one world to another. If you aren't already familiar with the world of Hat Atelier, I'm going to take a quick second to describe the intricacies of its magic, and how its rules become one of the biggest sources of conflict throughout the story. Witches are the only people in this world that are capable of casting magic, with witchhood being passed down primarily by lineage. To the common people of the Zoza Peninsula, witches might as well be a different race, able to bend the laws of nature to their every whim. But the reality of magic is a lot more concrete and mundane. Witches are just normal humans that happen to know the secrets of magic, namely that all magic is cast by drawing sigils, with the special ink used to draw them allowing for the spell to take shape. In truth, the witches have no inherent difference to the unknowing of the peninsula. They just happened to be born in a position that allowed them to learn the truth. This divide came about due to an event known as the Day of the Pact, where a group of witches decided to safeguard the secrets of magic by erasing the memory of everyone outside of their organization. They saw how magic had been used for evil, human experimentation, war, and countless other atrocities. They decided that magic should only belong to a select few that could use it responsibly. And so the pact was signed, designating the pointed hats as the sole protectors and users of magic, and outlawing certain spells that were deemed by the council as too dangerous. From that point on, any unknowing that learned the secrets of magic, and any witch that used forbidden magic, would have their memories wiped without question, ensuring that the pact was upheld. This setting, which highlights the complex relationship between witches and unknowing, is one of my favorite parts of Witch Hat. By keeping the truth of magic out of the hands of the masses, the pact undoubtedly prevents people from using spells for evil. But it also creates an inherent hierarchy. The witches, for their part, go out of their way to help the common people of the peninsula, with much of their work being defined by the ways they contribute to society. But at least to me, these acts of kindness seem motivated as much by guilt as goodwill. The witches receive privilege and power beyond any station an unknowing could attain, simply due to the circumstances of their birth. They get put on a pedestal and treated like gods among men, when in reality they share no actual difference from the people who look up to them. This power dynamic seems very reminiscent of the systems of nobility that once existed in medieval societies. Members of the nobility and ruling class are treated as if they are inherently superior, with abilities and status granted by the heavens themselves. But in reality, these nobles are just as capable as any commoner could be, and enjoy a higher status out of the fortunate circumstances of their birth. This connection makes the way the witches help the unknowing almost seem like a form of noblesse oblige, a rule that those with power have a social responsibility to assist the people around them with the gifts they've been given. In the same way that a noble has a duty to protect the people he lords over, a witch has a similar duty to improve the lives of the unknowing. This dedication to the common people of the peninsula is a very interesting social norm. It almost feels like the witches are offering penance for stealing away magic from the rest of the world. And this guilt will become extremely important when we consider the main character of the manga, Coco. Coco is a young girl who lived with her mom in a small tailoring shop. She would help out around the shop and otherwise assist her mother with her work, expecting to one day inherit the family business. Coco's life wasn't bad by any means, even though her father passed away long ago. They were safe and lived in relative comfort, but Coco always dreamed of being able to use magic. She was captivated by the glowing cobblestone roads of the city, and admired magic in whatever form it came in. But she soon learned that only witches were allowed to use magic, a reality that brought her great sorrow as a child. One day she encounters a witch by the name of Kifri, who uses his magic to repair a flying carriage that got damaged. She manages to sneak a peek at the way Kifri casts a spell, learning that magic can be drawn by anyone so long as you use the correct ink. With this newfound knowledge, she attempts to copy some spells using a pen given to her by a mysterious masked witch. After succeeding a couple times, she eventually draws a more advanced spell, one which ends up crystallizing her entire house and mother too. She only survives because of Kifri, who saves her from the spell at the very last moment. For learning about the truth of magic and casting a forbidden spell, Coco should have had her memories erased. but instead she is spared and instead brought on as an apprentice by Kifri. And so Coco ends up being brought into the world of witches. She achieves her long-standing dream of being able to cast magic for herself. But as you can probably imagine, this accomplishment is often overshadowed by the tragedy that befell Coco's mom. Coco feels a strong sense of responsibility towards her mother for accidentally petrifying her out of a desire to use magic, but she's initially able to contend with this despair, resolving to become a witch and find a way to save her mother with her own hands. Despite the tragic circumstances of her induction into witchhood, Coco is still clearly in love with magic. She gets extremely excited and happy whenever she gets to learn more about spellcasting, and seems to have an unburdened sense of optimism that stems from achieving her lifelong dream. But this joy doesn't last for long. During her time as an apprentice, Coco comes face to face with many of the injustices of witch society. People found to be even remotely related to forbidden magic almost always have their memories erased, even if they're a victim and had no choice in the matter. Furthermore, the rules of the pact make it so the unknowing are forced to live in ignorance, victims of problems that could be so easily solved using magic. Instead, the witches are forced to provide aid through a narrow and unforgiving channel that often fails to protect the commoners due to the strict limits of allowed magic. In coming to understand all of the rules and regulations of witch society, Coco starts to feel a deep-seated guilt for her own existence. She made the mistake of using forbidden magic as an unknowing, breaking the pact in not one but two different ways. And instead of having her memory wiped or being punished, Coco gets to achieve her lifelong dream. She becomes a witch and almost seems to be rewarded for petrifying her mom. She gets to harness the wonders of magic, something that no other unknowing has ever gotten the chance to do. And it's this guilt that makes Coco an extremely interesting character. When I talked about witches earlier, I briefly compared the structure of their society to the system of classes and nobility in the real world. And if we extend that analogy to Coco's circumstances, she essentially got a free pass to move up to the highest possible social group. This makes the guilt and pressure that Coco feels from this event feel very similar to the real-world conditions of impostor syndrome and survivor's guilt. Impostor syndrome is a condition that arises from placing extreme pressure and expectations on yourself. It can make you feel like an imposter, like you don't deserve the things you're receiving and aren't worthy of the success you find. And this is a phenomena that is extremely common in conjunction with class-related survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt is a type of self-hatred and guilt that stems from surviving a bad situation, or in this case moving from a lower social class to a higher one. It can come from the feeling that you abandoned your friends and loved ones for the success and benefits of a higher status, and lead to a belief that you are unworthy of the things you received. And this pretty much lines up exactly with Coco's experiences in the manga. She feels an unbelievable amount of guilt for leaving her mother behind to go off and become a witch, even if it was a complete accident. And in learning about how much information and aid is withheld from the commoners, she feels uncomfortable that she got lucky and was allowed to become a witch when magic is something that the unknowing can only dream of. Because of this guilt, she begins to place an incredible amount of expectations upon herself. She has to constantly improve other people's lives and work towards saving her mom, because if she doesn't, it means that she was unworthy of becoming a witch in the first place. This combination of survivor's guilt and imposter syndrome starts to weigh on Coco more and more as the manga continues. One of the most heartbreaking moments in the story is when a young girl asks Coco if she could become a witch one day. A girl not unlike the person Coco used to be. And in response to this question full of longing and hope, Coco can't figure out how to respond. She'd be lying if she said no, because Coco herself was able to become a witch. But she also couldn't bring herself to say yes, because that would be giving the girl false expectations and breaking the rules of this world. And so she just freezes up, and continues to place more and more expectations on herself to be worthy of the position that she was granted. Eventually, in one of the most recent chapters, she reaches a breaking point. The magic that used to be so wondrous and new has started to lose its luster. The pressure and expectations she was placing on herself became too much to handle. She wishes to return to a time where she had no knowledge of magic, believing that at least the people around her could be happy. But in that moment, because of the friends she made and the people by her side, Coco remembers the true value of magic. Not as a tool to prove her worth to others, but as a way to become the person she wants to be. Before the brimmed hats and the forbidden spells, magic was something she loved, something that made the world a better and more beautiful place. That's the reason she came this far in the first place. She sincerely and truly loved magic. And it's that dream that ends up saving her from the depths of guilt and self-hatred. No matter how Coco ended up becoming a witch and how cruel the world could be, it's up to her to become the witch of her dreams. That's the story that I think Hat Atelier is trying to tell through Coco and her journey. A story about the guilt and pressure of moving up through the social ranks even if you yourself may not have wanted to. Coco's biggest dream and lifelong aspiration almost became the worst thing that ever happened to her. She was so full of guilt and self-loathing that the wonders of magic slowly lost their luster. But through the love and support of the people around her and the rediscovery of what made magic so special in the first place, Coco's in a much better place now than she ever was before. And that's something that I find really inspiring. Of course, the story of Witch Hat isn't over yet. There's still so much left to learn about the world and these characters. But I wanted to take some time and talk about Coco because I think her struggles are deeply personal, and it's a journey that I think is worth sharing. Thank you so much for watching.